satisfaction. Customers today are strongly value-oriented. As we have discussed, value means the results the customer receives in relation to the total costs, both the price and any other costs incurred in acquiring the service. The insurance company, Progressive Corporation, is creating just this kind of value for its customers by processing and paying claims quickly with little policyholder effort. Members of the company catastrophe team fly to the scene of a major accident, providing support services like transportation, housing, and handling claims rapidly. By reducing legal costs and actually placing more money in the hands of the injured party, they are more than making up for the added expenses, which help explains why Progressive has become one of the highest margins in the property and casualty insurance industry. Employee productivity drives value. At Southwest, which is the 7th largest U.S. domestic air carrier, positions are designed so that employees can perform several jobs if necessary. Schedules, routes, and company practices such as open seating and the use of simple color-coded reusable boarding passes enable a boarding of 3 and 4 times more passengers per day than competing airlines. Southwest deplanes and reloads 2/3 of its flights in 15 minutes or less because of aircraft availability and short-haul routes that don't require long layovers for flight crews. Southwest has roughly 40% more pilot and aircraft utilization than its competitors. Customers place high Southwest frequent departures, on-time service, friendly employees, and very low fares. Employee loyalty drives productivity. Traditional measures of the losses incurred by employee turnover concentrate only on the cost of recruiting, hiring, and training replacements. In most service jobs, the real cost of turnover, however, is the loss of productivity and decreased customer satisfaction. Employee satisfaction drives loyalty. In a study of property and casualty insurance companies' employees, 30% of all dissatisfied employees registered an intention to leave the company, a potential turnover rate 3 times higher than that for satisfied employees. In the same case, low employee turnover was found to be linked closely to high customer satisfaction. For example, recently Southwest was named one of the country's 10 best places to work, and it enjoys the highest rate of employee retention in the airline industry in America. But what drives employee satisfaction? Is it compensation, perks, plush workplaces? Internal quality drives employee satisfaction. The internal quality of a working environment contributes most to employee satisfaction. Internal quality is measured by the feelings that employees have towards their jobs, their colleagues, and the organization. What do service employees value most in the job? They point increasingly to the ability and the authority to achieve results for their customers. Internal quality is also characterized by the attitudes that people have toward one another and the way people serve each other inside the organization. At ServiceMaster, for example, they developed a 7-step process for cleaning a hospital room, from the first step, greeting the patient, to the last step, asking the patient whether or not they need anything else done. Using this process, the workers develop communication skills and learn to interact with patients in ways that add depth and dimension to their jobs. Leadership underlies the chain success. Leaders who understand the service profit process develop and maintain a culture centered around service to customers and fellow employees. They display a willingness and an ability to listen to them. Successful managers spend a great deal of time with customers and employees experiencing their company's service processes while listening to employees for suggestions for improvement. Relating links in the chain for management action. While many organizations are beginning to measure relationships between individual links in the service profit process, only a few have related the links in a meaningful way, ways that can lead to comprehensive strategies. at the insurance company I mentioned earlier, they discovered that employees who felt they did not meet customer needs registered job satisfaction levels more than twice as high of those who felt they didn't. Even more importantly, they found that when a service worker left the company, customer satisfaction levels dropped sharply from 75 to 55%. At Xerox, we described our desired state, where we want to be when we are achieving our business results, in several ways. But the first two are our customers' expectations are exceeded and we achieve 100% satisfaction, and our people are motivated and challenged to achieve superior results for their customers. And remember British Airways' 2 strategic objectives for customer satisfaction. Finally, it is important that you remember that the basis for loyalty, the basis of a quality relationship, is trust. If a customer cannot trust that you will say that you will do what you say, then why should he do business with you? Now, what is trust? Trust is keeping your promises, fulfilling the expectations you create. When you make a promise, you create hope. When you keep your promises, fulfill your expectations, you build trust. When you and your customers have negotiated and agreed on mutual expectations, then there is a commitment, and the result is a stable relationship based on confidence. But when a commitment is not kept, the entire relationship is disrupted, and if allowed to become a surprise to the customer, it can easily result in a broken relationship and require renegotiation if the customer is willing to renegotiate. But usually, we know when we can't keep our commitments. We develop an insight, a pinch, an awareness that we will miss our commitment, like a delivery date. To avoid a total disruption of your relationship and the possible loss of a customer, it is wise to proactively reveal your pinch and continue to build trust by renegotiating expectations.
Thank you, Mr. Finnigan. Before continuing with the last module, let me ask you a question. You mentioned the importance of retaining clients for many years. How can you create and retain a good customer basis on long term when the commercial and trade markets and socioeconomic conditions in the developing countries are constantly changing and adapting to different circumstances?
It's a good question. I understand the concern. And I guess there are 2 answers to that. The first one is in a highly unstable environment and highly unpredictable financial markets, etc., it's probably more important than it is elsewhere to be able to identify a cadre of loyal customers that will provide a revenue source that one can depend on. The second part of that answer is, I think, then that's a reality. And rather than lamenting the problems that reality creates, if an organization or management can just simply accept that reality and say, now what's the best way for us to cope? How can we succeed in this kind of environment? And then move forward using the principles that you know will work. Namely, that if you can provide services that people want and services that people will pay for, that in fact they will continue to come back to you. And if the instabilities of your environment require you to renegotiate those arrangements with those customers periodically, they live in the same environment as well, and they'll probably be willing to go along with you so long as they believe that you in fact care about them and care about providing them what they want.
Very well. Thank you. Now we're going to continue with our 3rd module, presentation module, in which Mr. Finnigan will explain to us how to create a culture of customer satisfaction.
Today there is an increasing emphasis on leveraging employee knowledge and intellectual capital to create new value for customers. That is why it's important to do new and different things, especially through services, instead of just doing the same things faster and cheaper. What I'm talking about here is nothing new, nor does it require superhuman effort. What I'm talking about is drawing on the strengths of your employees, involving them in the process of creating or marketing your products. A good example is a company called Pacific Yurts. A yurt is a circular domed tent with structural walls designed to retain heat in winter and to withstand high winds. Yurts can be found today on state beaches of Oregon and Washington states in the United States, as well as in Japan, Saudi Arabia, Australia, and Chile. A Pacific Yurt employee who used to work in a lumber mill, on his own time, developed an analysis of how much lumber was left over during construction and came up with a proposal on how that amount could be reduced. The savings was substantial enough that Pacific Yurts was able to decrease its prices while increasing its profits. In this new economy, organizations must have reliable intelligence, not only about the marketplace, but about itself and its competition. The winners and losers in the 21st century will be defined not so much by the technology, but rather by the simple ability to disseminate information where and when it is needed. Bob Buckman, founder and CEO of Buckman Labs, says, "As we move towards the chaos of the future, the progress of an organization relative to other companies will be determined by the growth in the value of knowledge that exists within the company." He adds, "The acceleration of knowledge transfer is the key to growth. Strategic advantage lies in the leverage of knowledge." James Donlan, the controller at Chrysler, said, "What you have to do is keep calibrating yourself to the world standard because it keeps changing." We're looking to keep our barometer sharp at Chrysler. An example of the importance of new learning is in an industry is what is happening today in the world of finance. Banks today are offering investment services to their clients in a big way, and investment firms are now offering their clients instant access to their accounts as a bank would. Customers are more demanding, more convenience, and banks and financial firms are jumping in with ways to make financial services more user-friendly. For example, Bank One offers investment services through a company called Back One Investment. Investment firms are responding to the competition from banks by providing new services for their customers. At Smith Barney, for example, they recently launched a new online system to help its clients manage their financial management accounts by computer. While they emphasize that they're not a bank and they don't offer banking services, their clients can now use their personal computers to have online access to their account for paying bills, tracking expenses, and seeing ATM withdrawals, as well as money card purchases. Such examples of new learning to provide new customer service are important. But there's a more significant kind of learning that is essential to a culture of customer satisfaction, and that is learning from your mistakes. Let me explain what I mean. On average, CEOs of U.S. corporations lose half their customers every 5 years. Such customer defections are one of the most illuminating measures in any business. First, it is the clearest possible sign that customers see a deteriorating stream of value from the company. Second, a climbing defection rate is a sure predictor of diminishing flow of cash from customers to the company, even if the company replaces the lost customers. This is so because new customers cost money to acquire, and because older customers tend to produce greater cash flow and profit. Over 10 years of studying customer loyalty, customer defections, and their effects on corporate cash flow and profits has uncovered 7 principles about customer defections. 1, many companies aren't really alarmed by customer defections because they don't understand the intimate, casual relationship between customer loyalty on the one hand and cash flow and profit on the other. 2, it is unpleasant to study failure too closely, and in some organizations, trying to analyze failure can even be hazardous to one's career. 3, customer defection is often hard to define. And finally, 4, sometimes defining customers itself is a hard thing to define, at least the kind of customer it's worth taking pains to hold on to. 5, it is extremely hard to uncover the root causes of customer defection and extract the appropriate lessons. 6, getting the right people in your organization to learn these lessons and then commit to acting on them is always a challenge. 7, it is difficult to conceptualize and set up the mechanisms that turn the analysis of customer defections into an ongoing strategic system, closely supervised by top managers and quickly responsive to changing circumstances. Understanding customer defections is significant for several reasons. In general, the longer a customer stays with a company, the more that customer is worth. Long-term customers buy more, take less of a company's time, and are less sensitive to price, and they bring in new customers. Best of all, they have no acquisition or startup cost. Good, long-standing customers are worth so much in some industries, reducing customer defections by as little as 5 points, from, say, 15% to 10% per year, could double profits. It is also inescapable that what keeps customers loyal is the value they receive. One of the reasons so many businesses fail is that too much of their measurement, analysis, and learning revolves around profit and too little around value creation. I recognize that this is not easy to do in uncertain financial markets with fluctuating inflation and currency values, but you accept these as uncertainties as the realities of the climate in which you function. Once you've done that, you'll be able to broaden your focus into the market and the customers and your opportunities. The point here is that too often CEOs become aware of problems only when their profits start to fall. And in struggling to fix those short-term profits, they concentrate on a symptom and miss the underlying breakdown in the value creation system. They see customer issues as subsidiary to profits and delegate them to the marketing department. And that is truly dangerous. For example, in the most egregious cases, years of continuing defection can mean that former customers, people convinced by personal experience that the company offers inferior value, will eventually outnumber the company's loyal advocates and dominate the collective voice of the marketplace. When that moment arrives, no amount of advertising, public relations, or ingenious marketing will prop up pricing, new customer acquisitions, or the company's reputation. What matters is not what customers say about their level of satisfaction, but whether the value they feel they received will keep them loyal. Unfortunately, few have built systems to analyze the lifetime purchases and profits from different types of customers. Those that do such analysis find that the top 10% of their customers are worth 5% to 10% as much as in potential lifetime profits as the bottom 10%. A growing number of companies know that when they make customers paramount, a radical shift occurs in the way they manage and measure success. In fact, the lifetime value of a loyal customer can be astronomical, especially when referrals are added to the economics of customer retention and repeat purchases of related products. For example, the lifetime revenue stream from a loyal pizza eater can be $8,000. For a Cadillac owner, $332,000. And a corporate purchaser of commercial aircraft, literally billions of dollars, such as American Airlines' recent agreement with Boeing. This is why the study of failures is so important. The people who build, fly, and regulate airplanes understand this. Airline performance in the United States, as measured by the fatality rate, actually exceeds 6 sigma. That is 3.4 defects per million opportunities, which is the demanding standard that quality manufacturers pursue but probably don't reach. When a plane crashes, investigators spend whatever it costs to find out what went wrong and fix it. William Buffett, one of the world's most successful investors, also understands this. He has said, if my job were to pick a group of 10 stocks in the Dow Jones average that would outperform the average itself, I would start by picking the 10 or 15 worst performers and take them out of the sample and work with what was left. Einstein said, invert, always invert. Start out with failure, then engineer its removal. Before you can learn from your defecting customer, you must first know if any defect is important to you. Therefore, start with identifying your core customers. You can do this by answering 3 overlapping questions. 1, which of your customers are the most profitable and loyal? Look for those who spend more money, pay their bills more promptly, require less service, and seem to prefer stable, long-term relationships. 2, which customers place the greatest value on what you offer? Some customers will have found that your products, services, and special strengths are simply the best fit for their needs. 3, which of your customers are worth more to you than to your competitors? Some customers warrant extra efforts and investment. Conversely, no company can be all things to all people. Customers who are worth more to a competitor will eventually defect. The answers to these 3 questions will produce a list of your most obvious core customers. Many organizations believe that because every customer brings in revenue, that helps offset fixed costs, that every customer is a good customer. But the companies that have achieved extraordinary levels of customer loyalty have discovered that they must concentrate their efforts on that subset of customers to whom they can deliver consistently superior value. For example, State Farm Insurance, which services 20% of North America's households, long ago decided it must focus intently on its kind of auto insurance customer, the better-than-average driver who values agent service. British Airways' Colin Marshall says, you don't want to attract and retain every customer. The key is first to identify and attract those who will value your service and retain them as customers and win the largest possible share of their lifetime business. The new global economy has established a new perspective for productivity, adding value and using knowledge to build that value. That is why learning and the acquisition of knowledge is the heart of any organization's growth and development in this global economy. Being able to assimilate and comprehend knowledge more easily is the great promise of the digital era, and by releasing knowledge, sharing ideas, and building knowledge about the organization itself, its processes, and its customers, an organization can drive innovation. And it is innovation through new products and services, new processes, and new knowledge that entices customers. Much has been written about learning organizations. Most notable, of course, was Peter Zhang's book, The Fifth Discipline. And his definitions and analysis are widely quoted, but perhaps the simplest and easiest definition is one offered by Nancy Dixon at George Washington University. She said, the intentional action of an organization to continuously transform itself through both adaptive and innovative learning is what organizational learning is all about. I like that. But we also have to remind ourselves that learning is driven by need and by accessibility. We learn what we need when it's needed. In this regard, there are 5 behaviors that characterize a learning organization. They train employees quickly and effectively, fostering new learning, shrinking error rates, and accelerating program products and service rollouts. They attract fast-learning employees who are responsive, receptive, and resilient. They leverage past successes and failures to continuously improve their processes and services. They adapt quickly, and because they listen closely to customers, they innovate rapidly. They are time responsive, and they concentrate on reducing cycle times and simplifying processes. Learning organizations employ a distinctive set of learning strategies and tactics. A learning organization is one that excels at advanced systemic collective learning. The term organizational learning refers to 3 facts about learning. All organizations learn. In other words, they use organizational learning methods. All organizations learn at different levels of proficiency and at different paces. To become a learning organization, an organization must find ways to make learning more intentional and more systemic. Helping an organization and its workers to learn from their mistakes is a key part of the new learning and the new management style of patience and focus on incremental improvements. By learning more about work processes, employees and managers are increasingly able to learn from their mistakes. Most breakthroughs in work activity are the result of gaining insights from personal experience. Many organizations are discovering that if they can institutionalize this phenomena, they can anticipate significant improvements in work processes and technology development. Both Martin Marietta and Xerox gathered all of its engineers at the completion of a project to capture lessons learned and to share this information with other teams. Getting to the root cause of human behavior, however, takes a lot of time, takes a lot of effort and experience. In a factory setting where root cause failure analysis has been perfected over the decades, the process is known as the 5 whys, because you usually have to ask why something happened at least 5 times to get to the root of the failure. Let me give you an example of what I mean. Why did the product get returned as defective? The connector came loose. Why did the connector come loose? The plug was out of tolerance. Why was the plug manufactured out of tolerance? The intermediate stamping machine failed. Question 4, why did the stamping machine fail? Well, routine maintenance wasn't done on schedule. And 5, why? There is an attendance problem in the maintenance department. Usually after 5 whys, you begin to see what needs to be fixed, though it may take a few more questions to figure out the best solution. Understanding weaknesses in customer value is much more difficult than understanding why a part was stamped out of tolerance in a plant. Objective fact is a big part of the 5 whys. The plug did not meet the precisely defined specifications for all such plugs, but the specifications for customer value are personal and tend to be subjective. So the only way to assess them is to interview customers and ex-customers and learn what they want